Love it. That's cool. All right. There we go. Put my sissy gloves on because growing up in Cleveland, I am a giant baby when it comes to the cold. We went more south, but we also went up higher.
Yeah.
And it kind of just equaled out.
Yeah.
Less wind, though. I'll take the... Which is nice in the winter, but it sucks in the summer.
Yeah. But...
Alrighty. I forgot how to do this. Hold on. My hands don't work. I put something on them, and they've forgotten how to function. Here we go. Alright, you ready?
All right.
Let's do it. And start with your name.
Anthony Wayne Jackson.
How old are you?
Most people just call me Tony, unless I'm in trouble, and then they call me Anthony. But I'm 55 years old. I was born July 4th, 1966.
Where were you born?
I was born in Jefferson County, in St. Anthony's Hospital, and for a long time I thought that's why I was named Anthony. But I was born and raised in Jefferson County, lived there most of my life. And
Is that here in Kentucky?
it is. It's up northern. It's now Louisville. The entire county is now Louisville. But I always lived out in the suburbs and out in the other end of the county. It's most of the time when I was growing up, there was always a patch of woods and a creek or a pond somewhere, and usually I could cut through the woods and steal corn out of somebody's field. So, you know, it's not like we were in the city, but
May have been guilty of that a time or two.
yeah.
So what did your family do growing up? What did your parents do for work?
Well, my dad, most of his life was a bus driver for the city. He drove, they call it TARC up there, Transit Authority of the River City, and he was a bus driver for 32 years until he developed cancer and had to retire. He had a really rare form of melanoma cancer, and at the time he was diagnosed, there was only him and one other person in the United States that had it. And it started in his nose, looked like a jelly bean up his nose. But that was the cancer, and it just, within 3 years, it just ate him up. But my mom, I can remember my mom doing a little bit of everything, but most of the time it was caring for others. It was caregivers or working in a nursing home or in a hospital, stuff like that. But that was what I remember most. But I know she did a little bit of everything, and that's probably where I've picked up a lot of where I like to do a little bit of everything. And
Did you have any siblings growing up?
I'm the oldest of three. I got two other brothers. It was all boys, and my middle brother I talked to. My youngest brother, he's about burnt all his bridges, but you know, families are like that, and it is what it is. So, and they all still live up in Jefferson County and act like I've moved to another country way down here. I love it down here, and I hope I never have to move again. This place is just special.
It really is. I agree with that. It really is. So, what was your schooling like growing up?
Well, elementary school, pretty standard. I won, first through fifth, and although I had to repeat first grade because I had the measles, the mumps, and the chicken pox all in the same year, so I missed so much school I had to repeat the first grade, but that was pretty good. But then when I hit middle school, it was about the time they started the busing, and we started moving a lot. I don't know why we moved a lot, but we moved around a lot. And I wound up going to, I think I'd figured up about 6 different middle schools during my middle school career. And then finally finished out high school, the last 3 years of the high school in the same school. And that was some of the best memories of my life was in the high school, being in ROTC and the marching band and getting to travel around and do parades. And
Would you
all that.
play in marching band?
I played trombone.
Flute.
Played trombone. Then in orchestra, I played some French horn and baritone. Started off in percussion because they didn't have enough instruments to go around when I started. So I started off playing cymbals in the band until a trombone came available and I was able to get onto my low brass. So
That's pretty cool.
yeah.
So what kind of stuff did you guys do for fun when you were younger, when you were a teenager and a kid and stuff?
Well, like I said, most of the time we just ran through the woods, just building tree houses and chasing possums and playing in the creeks and catching crawdads and learning how to cook them up. And then I was in Boy Scouts and did a lot of things with the Scouts, just cave exploring mostly. We were all the time going to caves. My uncle was our scoutmaster for a while, and most of my kinfolks was from Cave City and Horse Cave, so he knew a lot of folks down there that had caves on their property. So we was getting to go and explore caves that nobody else had hardly ever been in, and that was always a blast. Learned how to map underground, and I'd actually been in some caves when I was in Scouts that were so narrow. Some of these spots we went in, I would have to turn my head and get my arms up that way and turn my feet sideways to scoop myself through with my fingers to get into these places, and then it would just open up into this huge cavern that was just, stuff that hardly anybody else had ever seen. It was just incredible. It was so amazing. I was so fortunate to have a childhood like that, to be able to do those things. It was just a blast.
So what about your teen years? What kind of trouble did you cause then?
I was not really much of a troublemaker as a teen. I was, like I said, I was in the ROTC and the Scouts, and I was active in church, and didn't really do much. About the wildest thing I did was when I finally got my license and was able to start driving, me and my friends would get together and fill up the boat. We had a 1969 Buick LeSabre. It was like a land yacht, block and a half long. This thing is just huge. It's forest green and looked pitch black in the dark. But we'd fill that up and just drive around, just cruise, and never really cause any trouble. But then, of course, I played Dungeons and Dragons a lot. And typical band geek, just hanging out with my band friends and playing D&D. And that was about what I did in my teen years. Just never really got into any trouble. I can remember in high school, I was always taller than everybody else. I was always the biggest guy usually in any group I hung out with. And our drum major, I won't say his name just so I don't embarrass him, but it seemed like he was always trying to start something with me because he didn't come up to the middle of my chest. He was a little fella. And I can remember one day we was at band practice, and we was taking a break, and I'm standing here talking to my friends, and he comes up and jumps on my back. And I, like, what? He just jumps down and said, nothing, you Redwood. So my nickname was Redwood for a while. But he was all the time doing stuff like that, just trying to get me riled up and get me to do something. And finally, after we had graduated, I'd run back into him, and he actually got me a job laying bricks one time. It was a good paying job. And I worked with him for a little bit, and turned out to be a decent guy. But
it's funny how life works sometimes, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. All right, so after high school, where'd you go from there?
Well, after high school, I blew all my plans to pieces when I fell in love, and wound up getting married just a couple years after high school to my first wife, and and then we had our child about a year, our first child about a year after that, and got the wild hair to move to Florida. And if anybody ever thinks about moving to Florida, don't. It's a horrible place. It's fine to visit, and I've
Did you
actually
see my poor van?
I've actually got a friend that lives there right now, but it's okay to visit. But no, don't. It's bad. It's bad. They bugs that'll kill you and sand that'll swallow your car whole. Happened to me.
Yeah.
I was driving home from work late one night down a road that I was unfamiliar with because it wasn't there the day before. And the road just ended. And sugar sand. My station wagon was buried about 2 inches past the bottom of the car to the door in sugar sand. Had to have a bulldozer pull it out the next morning, but it was the signs that said road closed had blown down. And I just drove right. It just disappeared. But and the bugs are just big enough to saddle. When we were looking at our efficiency apartment, I looked out the back door and I was like, oh wow, look, the patio's just covered with moss. I jiggled the doorknob and the moss went. There was little lizards everywhere. Just, yeah. Yeah, Florida's, it's like Jurassic Park South. Don't go there.
Oh, I love it. So how long did you guys end up staying there? And where'd you go after that?
We lived there about 4 months. And I actually started working at Disney while I was down there. I've drawn and piddled with artwork all my life, and because my dad used to do that. He was a pretty good artist, and I took my portfolio down to Disney, and I was like, yeah, I'll become a cartoonist with Disney. I'll work at Disney. That'd be cool. That's why we went down there. And I was like, showed them my work, and they was like, oh, you got good stuff here. You know, we think you'd do all right, but we can't give you a job in our art department. I was, why, you like my stuff? So, well, you don't have an art degree. And I said, oh, well, dude, okay. But they offered to let me work in any other position for 6 months. Then I would sign a contract with them to work in their art department and serve an apprenticeship while I go to the Disney University to get my art degree. And I would have been working directly under the guy that did Roger Rabbit.
Oh, wow.
When I was there. So that would have been awesome. I was there the same year that the Disney MGM Studios opened up. That new part of their theme park. That was the year I was there. And the guy I would have worked under was the guy that did Roger Rabbit. So I started working there in Gergie's Munchies and Crunchies, just on the other side of Cinderella's Castle, directly across from Dumbo's Wild Ride. And then went over to the Pinocchio Village House, where I served soft drinks all day long, and went into work early every day so I could ride Space Mountain before I started work. It was awesome. You get to go through the underground and cut lines. So that was a bonus. But we lived there about 4 months, and then our firstborn had actually turned a year old while we were in Florida. And I come home from work one day, and my wife's sitting out on the front step with our son in her arms, and she says, I'm leaving. I've already called my dad. You can stay here with me, come home with me or stay here without me. And I was like, wow, what? She said, I just can't take this place anymore. There's a bug in the bathroom that's bigger than me. It's she didn't like it at all. She just hated it. So we wound up coming back. I decided, well, I'll come back with her, and then come to find out that the whole reason she was so moody was because she was pregnant with our second child, and the hormones had gotten the better of her. So we came back and came back to Kentucky, and then I got into security work, and then I got hooked up with a company that decided to send me to the academy to get my commission and get me commissioned as a peace officer. and I did that for about 5 years. And that finally got to, while I did that job for 5 years, I'd gotten stabbed twice and caught a ricochet in my leg once. Just scraped my leg, and a scratch is all it did. But my nerves had gotten so bad, her eyebrows had fallen out. Her nerves had gotten so bad worrying about me coming home dead. So she gave me another ultimatum. You know, it's either that job or me. So, and when she gave me the ultimatum, I'd actually passed the written test for the St. Matthews Police Department up there, and was just waiting for a date for my physical to go and become an actual police officer. But there again, I decided, you know, my family was more important, so I gave up that career and started working in a factory building tractor trailers at a Kentucky trailer, and that was another fun bunch of job. That was I had a supervisor there. That Kentucky trailer was, when I started working there, most of the guys that was there were from Greene County, and they would go all the way from Greene County up to Jefferson County to work at that factory. But the guy that owned the place, we'd see him out in the plant all the time, actually working. The owner of Kentucky Trailer, he'd get out, he'd pick up a drill and drill holes and put rivets in, and I mean he'd get out there and do it, wear overalls. It's just a good old boy, you know. But I had a supervisor when I worked there. The guy could not read or write. He could read numbers, and he would carry around a paper all the time that had the numbers of the jobs, and that's how he'd keep things running on the line. Was he knew what numbers had to be going. But me and him butted heads from day one, because when I first started, he wanted me to work on the roof scaffold, and I'm afraid of heights. You know, good Lord made me 6'4". If I can't reach it from the ground, I don't need it. I ain't.
Fair argument.
You know, I am better now. I can get up three steps on a ladder and not freak out. So I'm doing better. But he had it out for me from that day forward. And after about 3 years, I worked my way up to being the rail man. I'd cut the rails. The rail is actually the big wide silver part on the bottom of the trailer that holds the side onto the floor. And I got the job cutting those. And to this day, I still remember those things. They came in one size. They were 53 feet, 53 feet, 1 inches long, and weighed 256 pounds apiece. Aircraft aluminum. And we'd keep them outside. And when it was time to bring them in, I'd usually get about 4 guys off of the side jig area next to me to help me carry them in. I'd carry in a whole bunch and fill up my table and then cut a whole bunch of them at one time. But one day, my supervisor decides that he's not going to give the guys to me to help. He's like, no. And by this time, I'd already cut it down to where it was just me and 2 other guys. Because I made a friend there, and me and him started going to the gym and working out. We were planning on being wrestlers. And he was a power lifter, so me and him had been working out, and I'd actually got to where I could bench press 300 pounds. And so I'd cut it down to me and 2 other guys carrying in these rails. Well, when I went and asked for some guys to help me carry rails in, they said, no, Jim said we couldn't help you. I said, really? Why? And he said, I don't know. It's because I wanted to take off that weekend. They was going to work that weekend, and I wanted to take off. They said if I cut enough rails, I could have off. And Jim was just trying to stick it to me so I wouldn't get it. So I'll show him. I carried them in by myself. Got dead center, balanced it, carried these rails in by myself. And Jim, the supervisor, was just standing over the other side of the shop with his jaw on the floor. He couldn't believe it. It grated on my nerves until I finally went to the office and I said, I need to take a rest day. I just got to go. If I don't get away from Jim something bad's going to happen, and OSHA will get involved. And now, Tony, calm down. And they moved me away from him and sent me to the another line on the shop doing the same job, and I wound up staying there 8 years, and that was a good job. But that was about the longest I'd ever worked for one place. But I did that. I drove a cab for a while. That was a horrible experience. I've pizza delivery, fast food, fulfillment centers. I actually, before I moved down here to Eastern Kentucky, I worked in a call center handling insurance benefits for federal employees. And I'd actually had congressmen call me on the phone to ask me about their plans and stuff while I was doing that job. That was kind of interesting. And then when I moved down here, I'd worked in all kinds of metal shops and stuff. And when I moved down here, I got a job at a machine shop and started off in quality. And that was a horrible position. So I went to a different position in the shop and started running the saw, and I loved that until the pandemic hit. And then because me and my son were both in the high risk group, I took a leave of absence. And while I took the leave of absence, they decided to fire me, but they didn't decide to tell me until a year later when I got a call from the 401k saying, you need to cash this in. And I was like, why? And I said, because they released you back last year. Nothing. So now I just live here on this farm and try to take care of it and do what I can to make a little money on the sides and survive.
Nice.
That might have been more than you needed, but
Oh no, you're fine. No, I was looking at my paper. I'm trying to see where I want to go next. So besides work, what was like some hobbies that you did outside of work? What'd you do for fun and keep yourself entertained? And
what I did for fun and what I still would like to do if I had the time and the money to put into it is since, well, possibly coming up on 20 years or more now, I've been involved with a group called the SCA, the Society for Creative Anachronism. It's a group that recreates the Middle Ages from the 1600s up until I can't remember exactly when, but I found that group by accident. Saw them sword fighting out at the University of Louisville.
LARPing.
And almost.
They had like real swords then?
No, the SCA actually started in 1966, the same year I was born, out in Anaheim, California, as a revolt against normalcy. It was, and basically, it's their whole thing is to be as historically accurate as you possibly can, and the armor is real. The clothing is real. The food. If they did it in the Middle Ages, there's somebody that can do it in that society. And the only difference is our weapons are rattan. And they use rattan because after a while it'll break down doing full contact combat. And when rattan breaks, it'll break off clean instead of splintering like wood. So there's less chance of somebody accidentally getting stabbed or anything. And it's all about being as historically correct as possible. And it's just an amazing group of people. I've got friends here that are still in it, and we're still family. I mean, it's a history geeks with sticks is usually what we're what we're called. But I did a 9th century Viking persona where I researched all of that, and I actually found out through my research in that group that I may have Norse ancestry. Because of my last name being Jackson, usually any name with a son on the end is Scandinavian descent. There's a gene that Scandinavians have that causes their as they get older, their hands curl, and I've noticed mine doing it now as I get going. And I remember other people in my family having that same condition, and just little triggers like that seem to make me think we may have that bloodline, and it was just kind of.
I mean, them Vikings did get around, so.
Yeah. Yep, I've been everywhere.
Oh, yes.
But, yeah, I did that for quite a while. Did a lot of heraldry work, painting guys' shields and stuff, and designing their heralds, their heraldry for them, and just working out a lot of scroll work, doing artwork on scrolls, and creating my own inks and stuff to put on the scrolls, and it was
It's a parade.
It was a parade. Yeah, sheriff bringing up the rear.
Right? That's why everyone's driving so slow.
Well, this is the scenic byway. It just it gets some traffic. But.
Oh no, the road's really, really cool. Every time I drive down it, I see something new.
Yeah.
Every single time, like, we've been here for, almost 2 years, and every single time I'm like, well, that's different. Like, I just saw this really cool cliff face, 'cause, the leaves are gone right now, and I must not have been down this way in a while. I just saw this gorgeous cliff face. Gotta remember it. I want to come back with, the cameras and stuff, go take some pictures.
You ought to go up this road over here. This road over here, it actually comes out on 421.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, Camp Andrew Jackson's just right up over the hill over here. And this road will take you right beside it.
What's that?
Camp Andrew Jackson, it's the Christian Appalachian Project camp. A lot of kids, actually I think they're having day camp. We're having day camp this week over there. Just camp for kids. And
ooh,
I've never been. I've met people that have, but it
sounds like some good people to go talk to. Yeah. That's what it sounds like.
Yeah, well, Camp Andrew Jackson, it couldn't be bad. It's
a neat name.
I was always told that we were related to Andrew Jackson through one of his brothers or cousins or somebody. It was, and my grandfather at one time, I can remember seeing pictures of him, and he looks just like Andrew Jackson on the $20 bill. Not the new $20, but the old one. Looked just like, it just reminded me of him so much. But that's an interesting road to go. Then if you go this road back here, it'll take you all the way back around and have you come up on top of the hill. But back over here is that Growing Stones campground where they have the Bearded Man Festival.
The what man festival?
The Bearded Man Festival.
Oh, what is the
in
Bearded?
September. It's family friendly until dark. But it's a weekend of music and crafts and celebrating Bigfoot, pretty much, I think, is what it's about. But it's a pretty big draw for people out this way. And then if you keep following this road, you run into Irvin. You run into Irvin through the back way. There's a good sized creek down here, or river, depending on your definition of what it is. It's a nice place to swim and put in a boat and kayak around or whatever. It's
cool. That's pretty cool. So you'd mentioned ROTC earlier. Did you ever pursue anything with the military?
I did. It was Naval ROTC that I was in, and I'd been married. Well, it was before we went to Florida. Before my first son was born, I joined the Navy. I got into. When I was in ROTC, we took a field trip to Charleston. Charleston, we went on board this ship called the USS Nicholson. It was a guided missile destroyer. And after spending a day on that ship, I knew that's where I wanted to be. So I did a little research, and I figured out if I was to get into being an electronics warfare tech, that would have guaranteed me a position on either a submarine or a destroyer. And I was too tall for sub duty. So, bam, that was where I wanted to go. So I did what I needed to do, and I studied and took my test and qualified for that job and signed my contract. And the day came, and I went all the way to Point Loma out in San Diego, California for my basic training. Got off the plane, took the bus trip over to the base, and was standing in this room on our little black square, and Master Chief Petty Officer up in the front calling people by name, and you'd give them your packet with your contract and your orders. And he's reading off on a list. Well, he calls me up there, and he says, "Jackson, I see you're going to be with me in the Seabees." And I was like, no, I'm supposed to be an electronics warfare tech. So my paper right here says you're supposed to be a Seabee. And I said, well, I got a contract here. And he said, that contract don't mean squat. We own you now. And actually tore my contract in front of my face. So about 3 weeks in, we got a free day, and I went over to legal. And they called my recruiter, who I'd known for 3 years because I was in ROTC. And he sent copies of my contract to the lawyer, and the lawyer said, you got a case, if you want to pursue it. And I said, all right. So I went to pursue it, and they wound up sending MPs over to the barracks and took me to a Balboa hospital and put me on the 3rd floor, the mental ward. Yes, lovely lavender foam slippers with a happy face on them, and pajamas all day, and
The wonderful grippy socks.
yeah, in a room with a guy from the Marine base that sat at attention all day, and the only thing he'd ever say is, I'm a rock. I'm a rock. Come to find out, he killed his drill instructor with the butt end of a rifle. And that's all he'd said since then was, I'm a rock. It was, yeah, nice place. And they kept me there for about 3 weeks. And then they sent me over to the end of the airport runway in this 2-story building with 12-foot chain link fences around it, and MPs with guard dogs and M16s, and put me in that building for a little while, and come to find out that was a federal holding facility for federal criminals on their way to be processed. And yeah, so that was a fun place. And then they shipped me from there to what they call the OGU, the outgoing unit, and had me sweeping streets for several weeks. Now, by this time, my company had already been through boot camp and had started school. And I finally get a call to the CO's office, and he says, Mr. Jackson, I see here you're trying to sue my Navy. And I said, well, I signed a contract, and I expected it to be honored. But he says, well, if you think what we've been doing to you is bad, wait till you're in the middle of the ocean. People have been known to disappear. He said, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to pay you for the time you was here and give you a bus ticket home. And we will give you an entry-level separation. It'll be like you never signed up. But if you ever try to sign up again, you'll have to get your congressman to write you a letter. And I said, where do I sign? So that was my illustrious career in the military. And it was,
Wow.
yeah, it was not good.
What years was that? Was there any wars or anything?
No,
going
it
on?
was the late 80s. Nothing was going on. I mean, we wasn't in any wars anywhere. They had more people than they needed, so they were able to screw people over like that. The Marines did basically the same thing to my brother. He went into the Marines. He got to finish boot camp and was a field electrician. And the spikes he had to wear to climb the phone poles was doing damage to his feet. And instead of giving him a ground position in that same job, they moved him to infantry. And he was like, no. So he got out of that. But it was, they didn't need people, so they were able to get away with it. And
Nice.
it was a good lesson in trust.
I'd say so.
Yeah, don't trust the military or the government. That's
Thanks. So is there anything else that you've done to like help your community, or is there any like kind of work that you've done around I keep trying to think how to word this question better. Like, I don't know, what's something that you're proud of that you do to like help people around you, or something that you feel like is a way that you give back?
Right now, just trying to bring this place back to life. Just, I don't own this place. I rent the place. But there's a lot of history here. I've met a lot of people from here that have memories of the place. And they usually tell me how great it's starting to look around here. You know, people they've had renters here before that just didn't take care of it. And I'm really trying to bring it back and make it into something. My dream is to maybe one day have a produce stand or something out here for people in the area. And even if it's like a co-op, you know, type of thing where, you know, I may not grow everything that everybody wants, but somebody else may grow it. Well, they could bring it down here and set up and sell, you know, to have like a little farmer's market, you know.
It's a nice little spot for it right there.
Yeah, and like I said, because this is a scenic byway, you know, it's Highway 89, it's a scenic byway for the state of Kentucky. It's on their website and everything. We get a lot of motorcycle groups and car clubs that cruise it during the summer. And, you know, maybe having a little something down here with some tourist information and things like that would be something nice to have. But right now I'm just trying to make it into something that'll feed me and my family. So, yeah.
Is that something you'd hope to see for this area, or like what's some hopes that you'd like to see for?
I think this area would benefit well with something like that. And it's I know like Dylan you'd talked to before down there at the library. He's a good fella. And that's my son's favorite place to go is the library. He loves that place. You know, it would be nice to see some things come in that would attract people, you know, to visit. Jackson County has a lot to offer. It's a beautiful, beautiful country. It's when I first came here, when I first came down here, we were living in Richmond. Me and my wife had moved to Richmond, and we was just out driving and touring the place. We'd heard about this place called Turkey Foot. And I don't know if you've been there yet or not.
Not yet. Everybody keeps telling me.
Oh my gosh. Turkey Foot. I can be hurting in my back or just feeling like I've been chewed up and spit out. I go to Turkey Foot, immediately I just feel good. There's an energy about that place that just soaks into your bones when you're there, and you're at peace, and it's magical down there. I've been down there in the creek, and have you ever seen a creek chub? It's like a giant minnow is what it is, and you usually only find them at stream heads where the streams start. This thing was the size of my hand. And I was able just to reach into the water and pick it up, and it sat right there in my hand and let me pet it, and it was just amazing. And we're all the time down there finding holy stones. Matter of fact, right here is one. This is a holy stone. It has that perfect hole through it.
Nice.
Also known as witch stones, but
I've never seen that.
It's what it is. You can see right here. It's where the rock will lay in fast-moving water, and a small pebble will get caught on it, and the current of the water going over it slowly over time will drill that little pebble, drill a hole into that stone. And they call them holy stones. And the legends say that on a full moon, in the light of a full moon, if you look through the holy stone, into an open pasture or field, there's a good chance you can see the fairies dancing at midnight.
Haha, that's so cool.
Yeah, so, but constantly, every single time we go down there, me and my 9-year-old find at least one.
That is something I never knew about here. Like, I've never seen one of those, never heard about them before. That's really, really neat.
And we find them all the time. Agate's another thing you can find out here in Jackson County pretty easy. And I haven't found a whole lot, but it's supposed to be plentiful out here. And I got a buddy that lives in Berea that he goes out and hunts it all the time. He actually started a business where he sells his rocks, and a portion of his proceeds, it's called Rocks for Socks. And what he does is he takes a portion of the proceeds from all of his rock sales, and at the end of the year goes and buys a whole bunch of socks and donates them to the homeless shelters.
Nice.
For homeless people to have good socks to
That's
wear.
a really awesome thing.
Yeah, so but he's a good fella.
That's really cool. And it seems like a lot of people around here are just very resourceful, very helpful.
It is. Well, I wouldn't even be here. I wouldn't even be here if it wasn't for a friend of ours. My wife had met him on Facebook, and never met him face to face, and I had never talked to him other than on social media. But when I had my heart attack and had to have my triple bypass, he actually brought a cooler full of meat. His dad raises cattle, but brought a cooler full of meat for me and my family to keep us from starving.
Wow.
And come to find out that he was also in the SCA, but he was in another group, and so we had that in common. And then he's from out here, but he introduced us from meeting him online and him becoming a part of our life. He introduced us to Brad and Dottie at S&T down in McKee, and we became friends with them. And when we needed to move from Richmond, Dottie and Brad contacted Rosemary, the woman that owns this house, who was Brad's second cousin, I think, and got us this place. So it was like a chain of events. But Jim's no longer with us. Just been a couple of years now. Depression got the best of him. And Brad down at S&T, it's just been a couple of months now. He passed away. Just sudden accident. Just his heart quit. Is what I was told. And so my circle of friends has always been small, but it's starting to become a dot instead of a circle. Like I said, I've still got my SCA family close, and my good buddy up in Sand Gap, I'd saw my leg off if he needed it, and I'd do anything for him. And I know he gave me his truck to use when my truck had broke down, and let me use it for almost 2 months, or it might even been a little longer than that. But he's just fantastic guy, and that's the way people are out here. They just everybody I've met out here is just awesome people. They don't ask for much. They don't, and they don't hesitate to help you if you need it. We put out a call last year. That's all we had to do too. Go on Facebook and put out a call. Need somebody to till our field. we had 3 calls. Hey, I know this guy and this guy, and hooked us right up. People I'd only talked to once or something that knew us, and it's just the way they are out here, and I love it. I love being like that. I love being around people like that. There's a sense of community here that I never felt up in Jefferson County. It just a different breed of people out here. And I love it.
I'll say, is that something that keeps you here? If you could leave, do you think you'd ever leave this area?
They would have to knock me unconscious and drag me out. I like I said, I hope I never have to move again. I hope when I die here. I mean, this is where I want to live and die, right out here in eastern Kentucky in these hills. I love it out here. I've never felt at home like I do here. I've been from coast to coast, border to border. I've been to Mexico. I've been to Canada twice. I've spent time living in Colorado for a little bit, California. Every one of the southern states I've been through, and there's no place I've ever been that feels like this place. There's a lot of places that look like it, but there's no place else that feels like this. It's just, I love it.
I agree. All right. And I think I'm about out of questions then. So, any last stuff you want to add, or?
If I could say anything to people watching on YouTube, no matter where you're at, pay attention to the people around you. Don't take for granted that anybody can be useful if given the chance. We're all part of the same tribe, and we need to start thinking that way.
I definitely agree. All right. Tell everyone your name one more time.
Anthony Wayne Jackson, but everybody just calls me Tony.
All right. Well, thank you, Tony.
Well, you're welcome.
I appreciate it. That was really great.
Oh,
I really enjoyed hearing your story.
Thank you.
All right. Cool.
There's other little side gigs, but...
Oh, I'll be back. Don't you worry. You got plenty of... You got good material. I'm looking forward to it.